All right, Adrian, let's go over. I made this PDF for you. I will be texting it to you here in a bit. Or yeah, I'll text it to you and let's go over it. So before we begin, this is not to alarm you. You could say it's to make you aware or put you in a situation where you can make better decisions, okay? And give us a baseline of where to start. Your blood panel tells us the truth about your biology. This document tells you what it actually said. Okay, this is your age and your basic info. So the main idea I want you to get from this is think of the reference markers in your lab. Every lab has like little reference points, like a key. The reference ones on the LabCorp one, think of it like what it says here on the reference range is it's going to be for the general population, and it isn't designed for optimal health or optimal energy, optimal results, optimal fat loss. Okay? The functional range is a narrower band that describes where the body tends to run well, not merely where it avoids diagnosis. Okay? It's a performance target, not a medical verdict. Falling outside it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means that there's room between where you are and where the machine works best. Okay? This is the range that I'll be using with you, or this is to establish optimal ranges. So there's that word. This is about optimization. Basically, this is not to establish if you're sick or not sick. It's to establish optimization. In other words, there's some areas where you're kind of near the floor, or meaning the lower end of passing. But we want to not just look at the bare minimum. We want to look at how the whole system works together, like your liver markers, your vitamin D, your testosterone, etc. It says that 4 flags were brought to the attention on the LabCorp one, but then 15 is what we got when we ran it through a functional key, a functional optimization key. And so this is important. Nothing in this panel is an emergency. There is no marker here that requires you to be frightened, and 2 that require a conversation with your physician, both named plainly on page 10. What this panel is the clearest picture you have ever had of your own machinery at an age where every one of these numbers is still fully reversible. So it's not to alarm you, like I said. Here's what's looking good. Your blood architecture is intact. Red blood cells, white cells, platelets, clotting. Everything's looking good. You have no anemia, no marrow concern, no clotting abnormality. Everything's looking good. Your kidneys are excellent. Creatine, electrolytes holding. Whatever the next 12 months asks of you, nutritionally, you have the filtration capacities to handle it. Iron is not an issue. No raging systematic inflammation. HCRP 1.05 is inside functional range. That means you have low inflammation. That's a very good thing. There is a low hum in the immune system, but there's a low hum, but there's no fire. So considering that it looks like you might be you have a little insulin resistance, that's to be expected, but it's not costing you yet. It's like we were saying, it looks like pre-diabetic, pre-diabetes. So it's pre, and then you're like here. You're not yet at pre. You're like, you were headed in that direction. You may have felt that. Blood sugar has not yet broken. A1C, both functionally normal. So the summary is you're a 29-year-old man with no disease, no medication, no organ dysfunction, carrying a set of early metabolic signals that are at this moment entirely correctable through how you eat, sleep, and train and recover. 10 years from now, this same panel is a very different conversation. Okay? So this is where it gets interesting. The Symphony. Okay? It's not 15 problems. It's one story told 15 different ways. Okay? A panel read marker by marker produces a list. Like, say, oh, you're over this, you're over this. But if we look at the panel like read as a system, it produces a sentence. Here is yours in 3 movements. Your glucose is 97, perfectly normal. Now remember, it's at 97 and you had been fasted, okay? What to give you some idea of what this means is if I go fasted with less time, meaning I'd say I eat at 10 at night or 11 at night, and I were to do my labs at 7 in the morning, which I typically do to avoid the line that you went through, or 8, you could say, whatever you want to say, mine would be at 83, okay? Here's the interesting part, but it costs you 13.4 units of insulin to hold it there. This is the important part where, again, it's pre-diabetes, right? Then this is, I'm using that. That's not a medical term. I'm not trying to be medical on you. This is not a diagnosis by a doctor. I'm establishing that again, but it's something for you to, it's more for you to put a highlighter over this moment right here. This is an important moment here. We've established you're not sick. We've established that you're not in any danger, imminent danger. More what we're looking at is we want to see this number improve right here, your fasting glucose. So in 90 days, we need to see that improve. So we have a metric to improve already. Besides, you could say, well, Jacob, I want to lose fat. These are correlated. They're strongly correlated. The more insulin sensitive you become, meaning needing less insulin, and your blood sugar is more stable with more ease, that's usually a sign of more muscle, more testosterone, more insulin sensitivity. You get it? So this is what I mean. A lot of people just want the outcome. We're explaining how the mechanism works. The liver absorbs the overflow. When more fuel arrives than the muscle can accept, it doesn't vanish. It gets stored. And the liver takes the first shift. Your ALT is 57, more than double the functional ceiling of 26. Now, to be fair to you, a functional ceiling of 26 is pretty awesome. Like, this is for absolute great health, right? So ALT of 57 isn't super alarming by normal standards, and we established that at the beginning. That specific pattern, ALT above SAT, is in a man who doesn't drink, you don't drink, is a classic signature of fat accumulating in the liver. So this is something for you to process. The liver gaining fatty liver, or the fat getting liver on top of it, is correlated to visceral fats, okay? So fat inside the body, on your organs. This stuff right here, this is important again. And so then this is the last part here. This is one of the most important conversations of our entire findings, okay? And then we'll get into vitamin D, and which is this conversation here. This is the movement nobody expects. While you're overfueled on energy, you're undersupplied on materials. Vitamin D at 13.1 is severe deficiency, meaning it's in Edinburgh in August, meaning there's a lot of sun. Your bun at 8 against a functional floor of 13 is a fingerprint of low protein intake. Okay. So here's in one sentence. You are not sick. You are overfueled and undersupplied at the same time. So your food needs to be more nutrient dense. We've already taken a step for this. You pretty much got nutrient dense food from Costco yesterday. And that's why we want to prevent. So let's take a fast food is exactly what creates this reality here. Okay. Fast food creates this reality. Fatty liver disease, insulin resistance. If somebody said, well, why do you get fat with fast food? It's because of this, what you're seeing right here. So I hate to break it to you, but the Whataburgers, this is the work of Whataburger right here. Okay. I'm not trying to throw shade, as I'm giving you something humorous to kind of anchor it to. Okay. Okay. Right here you have the glucose, and it says where you test it at. It says the lab range, which is what the key is. So see, even by their standards, which is a little bit more lax, you're at the top end here. You're right at the top end here on glucose. And you test it at 1030 or so. And that's what's causing you, it's difficult to lose weight. So we need to get you more muscle so that you're processing glucose way better. Hemoglobin A1C, okay. Functionally, you're doing pretty good. So that I'd attribute this one to your age. In other words, while your glucose is a little high, your hemoglobin A1C is doing pretty good. Insulin. Insulin is 13.4. Functional is under 8. Okay, that's for functional. This lab range puts you pretty much middle of the road. But you see, so that's why that's to give you an idea. If functional is under 8, insulin 13.4, that's kind of one of the keys that I'm showing you the difference between functional and lab ranges. Okay, 3.2, functional is under 1.5, and here is the first conclusion of pre-diabetes or well, you're saying that pre-diabetes. Okay, the HOMA-IR, HOMA-IR. Okay. These are your liver markers. The liver is such an important organ. It's saying that you have a little bit of elevated liver. Now, I have been at 25, and I can tell you it's very difficult to get there. So I'm not trying to make this super alarming, but even by the lab range, you're 57. So your liver is showing a little bit of inflammation or being overworked, okay? You see, even by lab ranges on the AST, you are just under even that lab range. By the functional, 26, and the ratio, 0.6, and this is around 1. So it's pointing to hepatic fat. There's a little bit of cholesterol. The labs have flagged you even the labs did flag you. When I say even the labs, meaning those are easier markers, as we've established. By even their range, your total cholesterol is high. Your low density cholesterol is lower than you want it to be. Or low density, yeah. Your high density is lower. You want it to be great. This one, the HDL, you want it to be greater. You want the low density to be lower. Okay? Triglycerides in your blood, showing high, even by lab standards, high by functional standards. The bun is low protein intake and weak digestion or congested liver. So we see here, as you can see here, that one of your keys is going to be to build more muscle. That's going to be one of your key markers, because if we can get you having more protein and building more muscle, which is why as you can see here, the logic in the pyramid starts making sense, right? Whereas if you're resting well, you're meditating, you're praying, you're doing your rosary, you're taking care of the spiritual work, and then your sleep, that's gonna naturally affect how you sleep, right? Because you'll have more peace. That's gonna affect how you recover. How you weight train is gonna affect. That's gonna allow you to push more weight. That's gonna allow you to get stronger. That strength is gonna require you to fuel it with more protein. That's gonna increase the rate at which you process insulin, or rate at which you process glucose. That's going to make you more insulin sensitive. It's going to drop your fat down. It's going to improve. You see how everything sort of, what I want you to start seeing is how, if you're getting a little confused, great. If you're getting a little clarity, we're after the clarity. I'm trying to show you how the pyramid is connected to correcting this. And just like that has a system, your body itself is a system. And that's what I want you to see. Okay? This is your vitamin D that we need to increase. I told that to you. Your sodium is looking good. You might need a little bit of electrolytes. You're right here. You're a little bit below on your thyroid reading, meaning this is your actual metabolism, but it's not looking terrible, considering that if we take everything into account, your thyroid is looking pretty good. You might need some more B vitamins. Okay. We're not going to get into that just yet. We could address that in month 3. Free testosterone wasn't measured. Just so you know, testosterone tests, if I were to get you this panel here, testosterone and a sex hormone binding globulin, which is ideal for really establishing testosterone more solidly, that's like $200 to $300 just for that alone. But I knew that if we got you just this one here, I knew we could get a picture, and it pretty much came out where I thought would be about a middle of the road, not necessarily high testosterone, not low, just functional or working. But ideally, we'd want it to be higher. So we'll talk about supplements you could take to get that up. Every finding in this panel has an address. The pyramid is not a menu, it's a sequence. And it is built bottom up because each layer is what the layer above stands on. So sleep and recovery, so important. Get the Apple Watch out, like we talked about. We're going to be focusing on nutrition, obviously. Training you're at the gym doing right now. Cardiovascular, of course, is so helpful. And we're not going to get into chemistry. It says not yet, earned, not bought, meaning if and when it comes to it, we can talk about that. But there's so much low-lying fruit, like just vitamin D, just sleeping, just getting stronger is already going to put us in the right state. I think that once you get into a position of, let's say, more optimized, if you wanted to consider a peptide at that point, or you have an injury or something like that, we could talk about that. But we don't need to cross that bridge at this point. This goes into how not to. We're not going to do that. This goes into the pyramid. So focus on sleep and nutrition. Too much energy. We got to look at the fast food, I'd say, because even by what you told me, you're barely eating in the daytime. So you may not be eating enough. And the food you are eating is very low nutrient. So even when you are eating, it's sort of not great, right? So look, if after going through all this, so if you want to talk to your doctor, these are the 2 that you want to talk to about because he's the one that can diagnose. This is more conversation, not medical advice. Look at that. And here's a conclusion. There's 15 markers outside functional range, which I told you that's for optimization, and we've established the labs. But yeah, every one of these can be changed. Look over this video and let's get to it. Adrian, talk to you soon.